This is Healing at Soul Level with your host, Shawna Williams. Shawna is here to provide various forms of healing that are non-invasive, that promote relaxation and aid the body in naturally healing itself by using ancient healing techniques that have been around for centuries. So please welcome the host of Healing at Soul Level, Shawna Williams.
Hello and welcome to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Today's guest, Dr. Rita Louise, is a best-selling author and the founder of the Institute of Applied Energetics. By the age of 8, she began searching for spiritual self-discovery, pursuing topics including health and wellness, philosophy, and the esoteric arts and sciences. Two of her gifts include medical intuitive and clairvoyant. Dark Angels, an insider's guide to ghosts, spirits, and attached entities and the power within is one of her books that made me want to contact her for the show. Welcome to the show, Dr. Rita.
It is so nice being here with you, Shawna.
I'm so glad you're here.
Excited.
I really like your book.
I think we're going to have a good time.
I think so, too. So tell me a little bit more about yourself and how you learned that you were psychic.
I love telling this story because it wasn't until I was about 30, all right, and I hate dating myself, but I was about 30 that I actually figured out that I actually had any psychic abilities at all. I mean, as a kid, that was something that I wanted to do. There were TV shows that talked about ESP and psychic abilities, and I was like, oh, man, I want to learn how to do this. And I just started reading all kinds of books and, I'm trying to absorb anything that would teach me. I just kept waiting to have this experience, quote unquote, and nothing ever happened. I mean, nothing. And so when I was 30, I signed up and took courses at the Berkeley Psychic Institute. And after being in their program for about 3 weeks, I discovered that I had been very psychic my whole life. But no one ever said, when you pick up a Christmas gift and you kind of give it a little shake and you know what's in the box, that is a psychic experience.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But I didn't know that. But that's kind of was the norm kind of thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that people that have psychic abilities, they just think that that's just because it's not like you see in the movies. It's just your normal everyday experience, and so you don't know any different. Is that how it was for you?
Yeah, I mean, I just figured that's how everybody was. And you would, you watch TV shows like back a million years ago, there was a TV show that was very influential to me, which was called The Sixth Sense, not the movie, but a TV series. And I kind of joke around because it's like Murder, She Wrote, but with a paranormal twist to it. And the main character had ESP. But he would walk into a room and pick up a piece of paper and he would see this ghostly image of the dead person and get a clue to who killed him. And so I always thought that was how the information was going to be presented, or, there'd be trumpets and angels coming out of the sky going, Rita, blah, blah, blah. Never happened. But that's the impression that people have of what it is. And it's not.
Not at all. Wow. That is how Hollywood, that's how they get their ratings. I guess if they made it regular every day, then nobody'd tune in.
But I don't think people, it's kind of hard to present a feeling on TV.
That's true.
It has to be visual. I mean, I think that series Medium did a pretty decent job at portraying what was going on, for TV.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's just hard because it's an internalized felt sense, or internalized perception that we have, that, there is no film at 11, except maybe in your head.
Right. You're also a medical intuitive. That always fascinated me. How does that work?
Well, after I finished, well, actually, even while I was at studying at Berkeley, we had to take some healing courses, doing energy work or chakra clearing, that kind of thing. And when I would work on people, I would always find weird stuff in their bodies, but I just figured that's what you did, kind of like my psychic stuff. And it wasn't until I had finished there and was actually working as a professional psychic and interacting with friends of mine, because I would do a lot of expos and trade shows, doing readings, and discovered that many of the people that I, became friends with that were psychics really didn't perceive people's health issues.
Right.
So, and I think that one thing that many people don't recognize is that, when they're interacting with someone who has intuitive gifts, is we each have our own, I'm stealing a word from a friend of mine, our own channel. So there are some people that talking to dead people is what they do. That information comes through to them very clear. They're very open to it, very receptive to it. For other people, it might be past life information, so there are things that resonate with us that we're able to see clearly, just without any specific training. And so for me, addressing issues of the physical body seemed to be a very natural thing, which caused me to go back to school and get a degree as a naturopath and then finally a PhD in natural health counseling.
Oh, okay.
People want to know. It's like, okay, well, you see this going on. Now what can I do? And I never had any answers. So now I have answers.
Right.
Of what they can do.
Oh, that is the best thing. I've always been interested in that. I mean, I didn't even know there was a such thing as medical intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I read yours, and then I started seeing a few other people, and I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. Now I want that. I want that ability. Like you said, I want to be able to do that.
And it's just really a matter of focus and, being open to receiving that energy vibration. I mean, for me, it tends to be pretty kinesthetic on some levels, I mean, because with medical intuition, there's identifying what's going on physically. Mm-hmm. And when I work, because there are kind of two different camps. There are people that are medical intuitives, and they only look at the subtle body. They look at the aura, they look at the chakras, and read those. And they are medical intuitives. For me, I get down into the physical body. Well, this is what I see going on with your kidney. Oh, okay, well, you have this pain over in this part of your body. It's like, okay, well, you have this muscle tightness here, and I get very specific on physical issues, physical symptoms of what's going on. But one of the things that's tied to medical intuition is addressing the emotional issues that are that cause the situation to manifest in the first place.
Right.
And that, I mean, if you fall and break your leg, you know what? You fell and broke your leg. Now, there are some people that say, well, there's some karmic influence. Yeah, maybe. I don't go in, personally, I don't go into that whole thing.
Right.
But if you develop gallbladder disease or, breast cancer or something like that, there is always these long-term chronic progressive illnesses. There is, I'm going to say 85% of the time, a psychospiritual, an emotional or mental cause that sits underneath that health concern.
Okay, I see. So maybe I could have just a tiny hint of that, because when I do energy work, I can feel where someone else is hurting. Am I throwing out a long shot. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come right back after this. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level, and I'm your host, Shawna Williams. We've been talking with Dr. Rita Louise about her psychic abilities and medical intuitive. I'd like to talk a little bit about her book that's so interesting to me. It's called Dark Angels. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, Dark Angels, the full title is Dark Angels, An Insider's Guide to Ghosts, Spirits, and Attached Entities. And it's really broken up into, I'm going to say, 3 parts. The first part of it talks about ghosts and ghost hunting, why a ghost might hang around, because people have things potentially in their house and they don't really understand what's going on, whether it's an active haunting, whether it's a residual haunting, which have different characteristics. It goes into ley lines and vortexes and spirits that attach to things, like dolls or whatever.
Right.
And then the second part of the book gets into the whole concept of entity attachment, which are spirits that enter the auric field and try to control and manipulate the person they're attached to. Not fun, but it happens.
Right.
And then the third part of the book kind of goes into, if there's something going on, what you can do. Not an in-depth exploration. It deals more with addressing a ghost versus dealing with an attached entity, because that really is a bit of a specialized thing to have to deal with.
I have a little question about entities, because my understanding is they're not really like a soul. They're almost like a spiritual disease, I guess. Like they're not real smart or something. Am I understanding that correctly, or?
I'm going to say no. I have interacted with, there's our physical world, and then there is this world that is unseen to the normal waking eye. Okay. And so there are a variety of spirits, and I'm using that term in kind of the biggest sense of the word, that exist there. And so sometimes an attached entity can be, and this is the most case, the spirit of someone who has passed but hasn't crossed over.
Okay.
There are entities that I've experienced that I call them alien entities, because they don't take on human form, at least, from a perceptual point of view. And the dividing line is they don't speak human, and so you can't, if you're interacting with someone who's from China or from, some other country that doesn't speak English, you can still interact with them. There's still a level of empathy, feeling, understanding, because we're human. When you deal with these spirits, that doesn't happen. You can't really connect with them that way. And I've also interacted with some spirits that I would put in the demon category. Now, the number of those that I would put into that category, maybe not too many. So, I think. Go ahead.
I only ask about the entity because my son has presented with seeing auras and spirits, and every time him and I would meditate, he kept seeing this. He described it like an amoeba-like thing, and he said it kept coming towards him, and so I went through with him and we did some clearing, and now he's not seeing it anymore. But I just want to make sure that we actually cleared it, because it had not attached yet. It was lurking, I
had
guess.
a client who had that amoeba thing, which is, falls into that total alien entity category. And no, it wasn't smart. It was like an amoeba, and she was covered in it. She was covered in them. And I was like, I wouldn't, energetically, like how in your mind's eye you might like clear something off. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Well, I'm like trying to clear these amoebas, but I didn't want to like even energetically touch them. So I'm like using a little energetic stick to like get them off of her because it was, ugh. And then I had to go really wash my hands and take a shower after those sessions because they were, no, I feel like your son is really developing some very strong boundaries. You know, and entities get into our space because we don't have strong boundaries. We don't have a clear sense of self. We are in a negative or really low place that opens the door to allow them to come in. You know, so it's interesting. And let me put this out because I think it's important for people to hear this, is they'll come to someone like myself and want to get clearing. But there's a reason why the entity attached in the first place. You know, there's something in their auric field, you know, or their psyche that is leaving them open. And so until they can heal that part of themselves, they're just kind of an open door for entity attachments.
Okay. So that's good then. I think maybe we got that I guess that's why I was thinking. So there's different levels of entities, and we just happened to get the one that, like you said, was icky because he kept saying it's freaky looking, it's gross, it's you know, that's what he kept telling me.
I mean, the amoeba one was probably one of the weirdest ones, and like I said, this woman was covered in them. And then I had one woman who had like these bugs. These were my two weirdest entity attachments. And they were like these like bugs, like dragonflies. And they would, you know, you do this work and you start saying things that are even weird for you to say out loud. And so this was even weird for me to say out loud. But these were like interdimensional entities because they would just like appear and go into her auric field, and she would like swat them around, and I was swatting them around, and then they would just leave her auric field and disappear. I mean, it was really bizarre because it wore, you know, so.
Wow, that was, that's pretty creepy. And you've seen so many things. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will be right back. Hello, welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. I've been talking with today's guest, Dr. Rita Louise, and she's going to tell us a little bit about how to tell if you're an intuitive.
Well, I mean, as we were talking about earlier, you know, intuition is a felt sense. You know, and actually, I'm going to share this story. So there were a number of people that got into this whole discussion. How's that? That's a very nice way of saying on Facebook. So you know what I mean. A discussion on Facebook about, well, being psychic is a gift and you should give it away for free. And it was like,
one of those.
Hello?
Yeah.
You know, because it's kind of like, okay, but being a musician is a gift, and you know, they don't give it away for free. Being a painter is a gift. They don't give it away for free. So why should people that are psychic give it away for free? Right. Not that I mean to go into this conversation, but it's kind of a lead-in. But what most people don't understand is that we all are psychic. It is part of our subtle energy nature. You know, we were talking during the break about my book, Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4, and that book really delves into our subtle nature. It talks about the aura and the chakras and the subtle bodies and how we, each of us, are designed to send, so broadcast from us, receive, take into us, and then process information from the world around us. And so, and we all have this ability. And so someone that's psychic doesn't have some strange ability. You know, it's part of each of us. And so being psychic and tapping into your intuitive information is it's a matter of degrees, and I'll give a couple of very basic examples. Everyone can draw. I mean, I can draw the best stick figure people and my little stick house with my little, like they still look like they came out of second grade, pictures. And there are people that, like Michelangelo or Da Vinci, that do gorgeous work. Same thing with dancing. Everybody can dance. Now, some people you might laugh at a little bit on the dance floor. And then there's, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, who, epitomize. I mean, I love watching that show, So You Think You Can Dance, because it's like these young people kick butt, dancing. It's like, dang. But we all have that ability, and some people have it stronger or more defined or are better at it than other people. And so being psychic is that way, is we all have that ability. And what we don't realize is that many times we are responding to intuitive information on information we're receiving and just don't realize it. Like something, somebody says, well, we should go do this, and you just get a really bad feeling about it. Then you go do it anyway. And it turns out to be really bad.
Yes.
It's like, but your intuition was saying, no, don't do it. But many times we just don't listen.
Yes. That's a really good analogy. I like how you did that.
But it's so true. But what I tell my students is, but if you have that bad feeling, and even if it doesn't work out, recognize that you did have that feeling, because that's the intuitive experience. And you'll start to learn how to hear it and recognize that that's your intuition talking to you. Because after a while, I mean, I used to not listen. It's easier to do readings on other people than listening to your own stuff. And so I used to not listen. And
that's very true.
My life had a number of challenges. But now it's kind of like I'll get these insights like, well, you need to do this. And it's like, okay, I don't know why, and I really don't want to, but okay, because I've learned to listen, because I've learned the consequence. It's that cosmic 2x4. It's that smack up the side of the head of not paying attention, of not listening to the direction that spirit is guiding you into, because where you're going is that perfect place for you.
Right. Wow. That's exactly right. And that's funny that you say that. It makes me think about the guy who fixes cars, but his car's always broke. That's how it seems to me.
Or the trader, stock market trader, but he's broke, It's like,
yeah. I wonder why it's easier. I'm sorry. I was just wondered why it was easier to do it for other people.
That's
it seems to be like that. Yeah. It's across the board.
That's a great question. Because we go into judgment about ourselves, and I joke around. I didn't make this up, but I call it a Dr. Rita rule. If there's something that's happening, so let's say your friend says, hey, should we go do this? And a yes is a yes, a no is a no, and a maybe is a no that we're trying to justify. So let me give an example, and answer my example. Do you want $1 million?
Yes.
Do you want to sit down and work on your taxes right now?
No.
So those were pretty easy, right? A yes is a yes. We definitely know a yes. We definitely know a no. And then there's this whole other pile that sits in this gray area. Now, sometimes there might be something going on. We might be afraid to have it be a yes because we're negating ourselves or our fears get involved. But many times when we're not sure or we're feeling uncomfortable or we're trying to talk ourselves into it, it's because the information we're getting is a no. So let me tell a very quick story. So,
well, I think what we'll do is we'll take a quick break, and then when you come back, I'd like for you to tell me that story.
Okay.
Okay. Hello. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. We were talking earlier with Dr. Rita Louise about your own intuitive gifts and how there are certain levels and how we listen to it. We left off, she was getting ready to tell us a story about the gray areas. So where were we left off at, Dr. Rita?
Yeah, that is. And so, before we went to break, I was talking about a yes is a yes, a no is a no, and the other things that those maybes many times, not always, but many times are a no that we're trying to justify within ourselves. So I have to sit here and think. Oh, we'll all know because it has a very specific date. So a number of years ago, there was an organization that was called Whole Life Expo, and they put on these amazing metaphysical New Age conferences that traveled around the country. And I had participated with them. I lived in the Seattle area and, participated in those events when they came to Seattle. I had gone to a number of their events around the country, not all of them, but some of them, and they were always wonderful. And so I live in Texas now. They had done a Whole Life Expo in Austin, Texas, which was overwhelmingly successful. And so they decided to come back, and they were going to do a show in Dallas, which is where I lived, was Dallas. And I'm going to put out their booths weren't cheap. They were definitely, I think for a regular size booth, they were like $1,200. So you have to think a little bit about wanting to get a booth or not because it's, kind of expensive. But you make your money back, because they have that much traffic. So it was like, okay, they're coming to Dallas. Do I want to go? And I kept getting this it was in this gray area. And, so my little marketing brain says, but you always do good when you go to a Whole Life Expo. And, it's not like you are going to lose any money, and I'm trying to justify why I should go. I didn't have to get a hotel room. I lived very close to the venue. There was all this positive stuff. I had someone that would have shared the booth with me. It was on one level kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't I?
Right.
And I kept getting, nah, and I decided to listen to myself.
Oh.
Yay, I decided to listen to myself, and I didn't get a booth. Well, this is where it gets interesting. The event was scheduled the weekend right after 9/11. So I think 9/11 was on a Wednesday or a Thursday. The event started Thursday, opening ceremonies were Thursday evening. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. None of the speakers were able to come because there were no planes flying.
Right. Wow.
Many of the vendors didn't come because there were no planes flying. And they basically ended up opening the doors, didn't charge anybody money to come in. It ruined Whole Life Expo, which is very sad because they were a wonderful organization, and I feel bad. But I was really glad that I had listened to myself.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that's kind of a dramatic example. But I think it happens to people all the time that they don't listen to themselves and then wonder why they have bad luck.
That reminds me of a story. Again, this is about my older son. He wanted to borrow a friend's car while his car is being worked on. And my husband said, no, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Something bad might happen. And he didn't listen. And so I guess this intuition's more on my husband. And 10, 15 minutes later, I got a call, and he had been in a wreck so bad that we don't even know how he walked away. He's okay now, but it scared me so bad when I saw that car. The only place left on the car that was untouched was his driver's seat. Everything else was crushed.
Wow.
So,
15 minutes, huh?
Yes. I mean, he had barely got up the street, got on the freeway, and it was a big crash. So that was
when my son was probably about the same age. I used to just say to him, instant karma.
That's exactly what he got, didn't he? So yeah, that was something. But yeah, I like how you put this into perspective. It helps people understand that, we all have this in certain levels. It's just that, we got to learn to listen. And as you learn to listen, then it usually gets stronger, right? Kind of like flexing your muscles.
Exactly. Or you get to learn what that voice sounds like, because there's our mental, our cognitive brain, that might be thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner tonight and, what am I going to wear to work? I mean, there's that part of our brain. And then there is, which for me, talks incessantly, and then there's this other part of us where we hear things or maybe see things, it depends on how we are receiving information, that is quieter, it's subtler, and it's learning to listen to that voice or how that message comes to you specifically, because we don't all receive it in the same way. Somebody might just get a bad feeling. Somebody might get a picture of, wow, I'm going to crash my car, or, a voice might say, don't do it, and it's learning to pay, how it is for us, how that information comes in for us. And as we start paying attention to it, and, both good and bad, I think people, because we're human, we learn from our mistakes. We totally learn from our mistakes. That's really the place where you can start settling in on what does that voice sound like for me.
So that's why some people, because I've had people ask me, well, how do you go and take a class or something that you don't have? But I mean, you've already explained that we already have it in the class. These teachers teach us how to listen to that voice, right?
Right. I mean, I have a training program that teaches people to be energy healers, intuitive counselors, and then medical intuitives. So it's actually a 4-part course, and basically I tell them I don't teach you to be psychic. I just create situations so that you can learn what your psychic voice sounds like or looks like.
Oh, okay. We're going to go ahead and stop on that thought and take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, welcome back to Healing at Soul Level, and I'm your host, Shawna Williams. We've been talking to Dr. Rita Louise today about her psychic abilities, and she's been teaching us so many things. I think we're going to talk a little bit about healing, and maybe, the type of energy healings. So, Dr. Rita, what is it that you'd like to tell about that?
Well, and I would like to, can I use your story, or could you start with your story that you shared during break? Because that would be such a great launch point.
Okay. So I do Reiki healing, and I do Akashic record readings. And Reiki is an energy healing that does not cause problems. It's good, vital energy. So I did energy healing on this lady, and it just put her down for 3 days in bed. And that scared the crap out of me, because I was like, Reiki doesn't hurt. So what did I do wrong? So I decided to read her records, and I found out that she actually had an entity that was attached to her that was dormant. But when she got this boost of energy, then it went to eating. It had a buffet, and so it was causing her a lot of pain and problems. So we had to clear the entity. And then her next Reiki session, she felt wonderful. So that's how that worked for me on that one.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I think it's a great story because it just covers a whole lot of different concepts, you know, and I agree with you. I mean, Reiki is probably one of the most gentle forms of energy healing out there, you know, and what many people don't realize is that everybody does Reiki on one level or another. You know, I mean, think about it. You know, especially if you have kids or if you think back to your childhood and you fall and you scrape your knee up, it's like your mom would come over and put her hand on your boo-boo. You know what I mean? And like, my mom is Puerto Rican, and so there was this like blessing thing that I don't know the words because I don't speak Spanish, but it, you know, it was like this. It went. I have my abbreviated version. Sana, and then it went like blah, 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 blah. Hoy since sana, mañana, and she would kiss it and make it better. And it always worked, you know, but while she was doing it, she would hold your owie. Well, it's like my mom was doing Reiki. Yeah. You know, when we hold our own owies, you know, if we have a cramp in our hip and we just kind of put our hand on it and go, oh, man, I wish this would get better, and we just kind of like send love to that part of our body. We're doing Reiki.
Yeah, instinctively. Exactly.
You know, so it's kind of like that psychic ability thing. It's like we all have the ability to do it. It's not something that you're given a gift that only some people have. Like, you know, the way people talk about it, it makes me think of like X-Men. You know, it's like, oh, we're mutants, you know, but we're not.
Right. That's funny.
You know, but energy work, you know, there are people that believe that energy work is about the healer. I need you to heal me. You know, they come, that's their belief, that you, meaning you or me, are going to heal them. And that's really not how it works. How healing works is, it's like we're dusting things off, you know, or we're retuning things like a piano and adjusting and manipulating. But it's their responsibility to allow the tuning to happen. You know, because sometimes you can adjust something and it doesn't quite, you know, you try to turn a screw to tighten down a bolt, but you just can't get it tight enough, or it just doesn't work right. And it's not your fault. You're doing the best that you can. You know, so it's up to the client, and, you know, and I'm pretty upfront about it. It's like, it's my job to create the situation so that you can let go of energy, so that you can allow your energy to realign with yourself and your higher purpose and with the flow of energy in the universe. But I can only facilitate that. I can't make it happen. And so when I'm working with people, there are times where I will have clients that just let go of a ton of stuff. And I can have times with the exact same person that not much happens. Kind of like if you go to the chiropractor, sometimes they might adjust your back and it's like, oh my God, you know, and you get this giant crack that goes all the way up your spine. And then other times you might just get like a little pop. You know, because your body's not ready to let go of that energy and relax and be adjusted.
Right.
You know, so kind of in comment to your situation, I mean, the entity I get, but I think also you shifted something deep in her, and she was having a healing crisis, that you created this huge release, because had you not, there wouldn't have ever been the opportunity to get rid of that entity that I think was sitting in the background controlling things, that was so pushed back that she would never have been able to move forward from.
Wow.
Did that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, it does. I'm just glad that we figured it out.
Uh-huh. So sometimes, you can get energy work done, and you might not feel, I've warned clients, it's like, be nice to yourself, drink lots of water, you've released a lot. If you don't feel so good for the next day or so, please don't blame me.
Yeah.
You're releasing a lot. Sometimes I'll work on a client depending on what we're doing, and I'll feel like they're getting a headache, because I'm really kinesthetic. So if they start to get a headache, I start to get a headache. Not fun.
Yeah, I've done that too.
And I'll just tell them, it's like, go home, take a couple of aspirins, just preventative, because I'm feeling like what we stirred up inside of you can manifest in a headache, and I would rather be preventative, by taking an aspirin, versus you, especially like people that have migraines. I've worked with a lot of people with migraine issues. It's like, no, I don't want you to leave here and, have a migraine. Right. Because of the healing session, because it's triggered something.
Right. Yep. I agree with that. We're going to take a quick break right here, and we will be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Today's guest, Dr. Rita Louise. We've been talking about energy healing and talking about intuitive gifts, medical intuition. It's just been so much information. But I'd like for her to talk a little bit more about her services and what's coming up for her for the future.
Okay. Well, if people are interested in learning about what I do, they can go to, I have several websites, but based on this conversation, I would love for them to go to medical-intuitives, that's with an S.com, medical-intuitives.com. And it lists all the different services I offer, including medical intuition evaluations, psychic readings, energy healing, aura chakra clearing. I do what I call alternative acupuncture, where I actually will look at a person and adjust a person based on their meridian system. So if there are issues going on with them energetically in their meridians, I will address it from that perspective. And so that is kind of the place to go. There's articles on health. If they're interested in learning more about psychic abilities or what chakras are, there's a ton of articles on the website that are all free for them to access.
Okay.
And I want to share with something that's pretty exciting. I know that your show, goes out all over the place, but there's a new movie that it's happening by in demand, and so it has to get scheduled to come into your neighborhood, and it's called PGS, Intuition is Your Personal Guidance System. And it's a movie made by a gentleman named Bill Bennett, who had an intuitive experience and wanted to understand what happened. And he interviewed people like Carolyn Mace and James Van Praagh and Lee Carroll, who channels Cryon, and Judith Orloff. The who's who of the metaphysical New Age world, and me.
Oh,
and so,
yay!
Yay! And the movie is really good. And so if there are people that want to understand intuition, or have an idea, I've seen the movie 5 times, because they were doing like Q&As at the end of the movie, and so I went to a few different locations to do the question and answer part. So I've seen the movie 4 or 5 times, and even watching it several times, I still keep learning stuff. It just keeps going to a deeper level. So even if you think you know everything, I think there's still information in there, for people that are well advanced in their on their spiritual path.
And say the name of that movie again.
It's called PGS. Intuition is your personal guidance system. PGS, personal guidance system.
Okay.
And yeah. And if people want to connect with me, they can contact me on Facebook. It would be Dr. Rita Louise on Facebook. It's a like page. And I would love to, communicate with them. That'd be great.
That would be. And also, don't forget to check out her books. She has some great books. You can get those on Amazon. Yeah. So,
and actually, can I share one more thing?
Yes, you can.
I post these on Facebook. They're on YouTube. Also, I do a weekly, I call it a planetary vibration reading. And so what it does is it checks in with the energy on the planet. Where are we? Because we all vibrate with each other today. And where is this energy moving to? And they come out every Thursday, and they're free. So if you like me on Facebook, Dr. Rita Louise on Facebook, or if you go to Just Energy Radio, it's an old thing on YouTube, that's where these videos are posted. And they're like 5 minutes. I mean, they're not, an hour long. They're just a little quick update. This is where we're at right now.
Okay, I like that. I'll be checking that out myself. So I'm so glad that you came on my show today. This was so interesting. I think that all the listeners loved it. And don't forget, listeners, you can visit her at medical-intuitives.com and check her out on Facebook. It's dr.rita.louise. Or you can just look up Dr. Rita Louise on Facebook. And again, like I said, her books on Amazon. I know that she has at least 4 books that I've seen on Amazon. I'd also like to let y'all know to tune in next week to learn more about being an empath with my guest, Jennifer Valdez. So to listen to this podcast and for other old podcasts, or to book a reading or a healing session with me, visit my website at indigo-qi.com. If you have a healing modality that you'd like to share, then give me an email and a shout out. You've been listening to Healing at Soul Level, and I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Thank you for tuning in. Love and light.
This has been Healing at Soul Level with host Shawna Williams. Listen each week as Shawna will help you discover the different healing modalities and how to use them in your everyday life, right here on Shawna Williams' Healing at Soul Level.